Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate Right Now, where we talk about real estate matters that matter to you. We are live from the Linda Crafted Team Studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina, part of the Research Triangle Park. You know what? Here we are still at the beginning of the year, and one of the things that we talk about on Real Estate Right Now, we have talked about, at least in the first show that we did of the year, we talked about, what's going on with the market for 2023? What do we need to know? What are the things that might affect us? And maybe what some predictions are we have for the 2023 real estate market? Because we really want to know. Let's face it, 2022 was very odd. We started the market really, really hot, right? And then as the market went on, it started to get normalized. That's what we called it. And then we got a slowdown towards the end. So what does it mean for 2023? Well, you know what? To try to help us kind of decipher that and try to decipher those questions, I have again back with me Christopher Coy. He's a senior loan officer with Townebank Mortgage. Christopher, welcome back to the show.
Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks.
Happy to be here.
All right. So, let's talk about 2023 and what we can expect, because I know you've done a lot of research on this. You've got a lot of numbers, you've done a lot of graphs, and you've done a lot. Well, because you're a researcher at heart. I mean, you love doing that.
I do enjoy that. I will put an asterisk next to that. I've pulled a lot of information and research from other finance people who have possibly a better distinct competency in that area. So I don't want to say that I'm literally doing this research on my own. I'm pulling it from some of the main industry people who are respected and thought of value.
Well, that's okay. I mean, the fact of the matter is you did the research, all right? I mean, that's the real big issues that you've done the research and you've pulled this data together. So knowing what happened in 2022, which bizarre, right?
Interesting for sure. Yeah.
Right. I mean, houses were just flying off the market.
Yep.
Basically sight unseen. We had lineups.
Actually sight unseen.
Yeah.
Actually sight unseen sold.
And people were buying houses as is without inspections.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to this normalized market.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then we get slowdown.
Yep.
Right. And I guess we're technically in a recession.
Yeah. So a slowdown, or it was almost a pause. So I agree with exactly everything you're talking about on that. It's important to remember any other time the market comes to a halt like that, there's an event that's kind of naturally played out that's put us there.
Okay.
And in this situation, remember, this was something that the powers that be chose to do. They chose to slow down the economy to counter the inflation pressure we were having. So this was an event that was essentially man-made and put in place to do, hopefully, exactly what it's done. And now I think we're getting to the part where everybody's, realizing that we might have line of sight on the other side, and that's where we're kind of at today. So.
Okay, so I know you've looked at a lot of data in terms of where we're at, and possibly where we're going. What is the data telling you right now in the real estate market?
Yep. Yeah. So I do want to put out there that when I'm speaking mainly about the greater Triangle, North Carolina area,
yeah, sure.
On a national level, I think there's absolutely a lot of pain to be paid in a lot of areas, potentially the Midwest, Northeast, a lot of places that are going to struggle to rebound from this. Our area here was extremely robust. Even going back through the mortgage crisis, this area weathered it extremely well. And that would be a good benchmark test for kind of other stresses. And even in this situation, we seem to be more in a normalized market that is slowed down, almost dormant, but still better than most other markets in the country.
Okay.
So that being said, a lot of the big finance people have put out their expectations, and I'm struggling to find anybody that's putting out anything saying that the interest rate market isn't likely to move back closer towards the lower numbers, potentially the 5s and 4s over the next couple months. Barry Abib, one of the big mortgage finance guys, he put this big thing out there a month or two ago calling for sub-5 rates in under 5 months. And that would be, basically March, middle of March. So even in the last couple of days, the market's already moved materially closer to, in the downward pressure on mortgage interest rates. So it seems like it's actually in the last week already starting to pick up pretty significantly.
You just mentioned the name Barry Habib.
Yeah.
Right, who I've interviewed on my other show.
Have you really?
Twice. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, he's great.
He's excellent.
But by the way, and he's so knowledgeable when it comes to the mortgage industry. He has a product out there that is absolutely been fantastic. If you want to check out Barry Habib's work, it's Barry Habib, Habib. He does some great work. What are some of the reasons why that you believe, or even Barry believes, or what your research has indicated, why we're going to see this moving back towards that?
Housing, from what most people point to, is every house that sells is essentially touching 2/3 of the U.S. economy, from the paper towel roll, the welcome mat, any work done, engineering. To get a house transferred from one person to another, you're really touching a big piece of the U.S. economy. So the number one way to slow the U.S. economy, to counter those inflation pressures, the $9 milk, all these things that have been getting really expensive, right?
Crazy, right? Yeah.
They had to go back to the basic supply and demand, and by pushing rates up quickly, they've pushed demand down. And with demand being down, people will stop paying those prices that, over the last 2 years, we all started to get used to paying a little extra because of a supply chain issue or a production issue or this or that. We just needed it right now. Well, if you go too many years of doing that, that is now the new normal. And if we don't put action to counter that, $9 gallons of milk will be normal, and everything will be inflated and no chance of it going back. So to slow things down and get it there, raising the Fed rate, which is the interbank offering rate, that ripples through to everything. That's also put pressure on the mortgage bonds and stuff. So mortgage interest rates have come up during that. And it's really seems that it's done a decent job in doing exactly what they were trying to do, slow things down. And if you can't slow the houses from moving, you're going to still have a lot going on in the economy, and it's counter to what they're trying to do. If houses are still moving, all those other things, when someone gets a house, I know we're not supposed to spend, but they're going to get all those things, and it just doesn't work as they were trying. So it really seems that we're getting close to coming out of the other side of that. Per what we were talking about earlier, how do the rates get in the right direction? That goes back to the Fed when they're talking about the inflation numbers. That's generally a 12-month rolling average they're speaking about. So as we've gone through September, October, November into January and February, we're rolling off high inflation numbers from a year ago, and which were potentially in the 10s, 11s, 12s, and we're replacing them with numbers, in the 7s, 8s, 6s. And now that we've done that 3, 4, 5, 6 months in a row, that has a huge impact on that 12-month rolling average. So very quickly, we're going to go from a situation where we're just trying to slow the economy to a point where you now have to get the economy moving again. And if raising rates is the number one way to slow things down, well, just take a guess what a great strategy to get things moving again on the other side of it would be.
Right. We're going to reverse again. We're going to drop the interest rates down.
So it's likely that the rates are going to start to float down closer to numbers in potentially the 5s or 4s, and that'll help get things moving again.
So from your perspective, at least at the beginning here of 2023, from a mortgage standpoint, what are you seeing right now in terms of, fulfilling mortgages, doing mortgages? What are you seeing right now?
Right now, the majority of people that had done transactions November, December, and early January were people that had already started a transaction, new construction build, people that are transferring, and just have to have a house. There's a lot of situations where people can't wait. They just need a house. So most of the transactions that have happened over the last month or so were existing transactions people were already invested in, or situations where they just couldn't wait. That being said, even with this in the last week or so, with the rates going from the upper 6s down to the lower 6s, people have realized that historically mortgage interest rates are always up and down, and they're not necessarily in that sweet spot where you want it. when you get the house. So after 3 or 4 years of 3% interest rates, people are realizing now that, wait a minute, when I got my first house, they were 7. And I did, refinance that a couple times and get it down into the low numbers. So people are realizing right now that you're almost better off moving ahead right now for financial reasons, as opposed to just trying to wait out the rates. An example of that would be a lot of people, as the rates went from the 4s to 5s and the 6s, said, wait a minute, I don't want to buy the house at the top of the market price-wise and also the top of the market on interest rates. That can have a significant impact on that payment. So let's just use round numbers, $400,000 loan, $500,000 house. That higher interest rate could be $400 a month in your payment. And that's a great reason for people to be unwilling to move ahead. So that's $4,800 in the next year that they would spend an extra on interest if they don't wait, for the rates to go down. So that's what got everybody pausing when the rates originally came up. But now what people are realizing, particularly in our area, they're still calling, and we're still seeing fair signs of good appreciation in this area. So that person that had aspirations to move into that house last year wasn't able to get it done for whatever reason. Maybe it was too competitive, couldn't win a bid, didn't have the extra money to throw at one of those, high due diligence options or something. They didn't get a house, but they still have that desire. They're there. And now that they've had the holidays to kind of go through their numbers, sharpen their pencil and everything, what they're realizing is, even though the rates are up, houses are still creeping up in price. So a $500,000 house in our area, what most people in our industry, in our area, would say, even 5% over the next year is conservatively realistic. Most people come in with a number in double digits, 10 or higher. And I said, no, let's go really conservative on it. Let's say we only get 5% in the next year. 5% appreciation on a $500,000 house, that's $25,000. That house is likely to go up in price over the next year. So if you're not positive when the rates are going to come back, if you're not positive they are going to come back, by waiting a year to buy the house, you potentially can be paying another $25,000 plus for the house and not necessarily be in a better rate environment when you get there. So people are choosing to move ahead now because that allows them to engage in that normalized market we talked about, instead of having bidding wars and having to throw 100,000 sight unseen to win a house. They now can have a solid, real good faith negotiation on a house, potentially get a little bit in closing costs, maybe. That's a little optimistic, but maybe, and maybe get the price down. But more importantly, they can go back and they can look at it maybe a second time, where last summer you were lucky if you got to see it in person before you were sending a check in, and now it allows people to really choose their house, maybe feel better about the whole transaction, knowing that whether they ended up right now at 7, 6.5, 6, 5, likely they're going to refinance anyway next year. So why not just get the house when it's not a bidding war, get settled in, and then just pay attention to the financing going forward?
This is the piece where I hope you're all listening and watching and paying attention. The numbers are what's astonishing here, right? If we have a 5%, appreciation, that's $25,000. But then you pointed out, on a $400,000 loan under current interest rates, we're talking $4,800 more.
It's like an extra $4,800 in that year, but many people, there's a lot of silly sayings about you marry the house and you date the rate,
right.
mortgage, or
we've had some of your other colleagues on here actually say that. So
so that's an example of the house is what's important. And there's all these sayings in finance: you make your money when you buy something, not when you sell. Like all these things, and I don't see anybody coming up with anything in either the industry or our area to suggest that we will ever see real estate in the Greater Triangle as cheap as we do right now. And that is the foundation for our area and everything that's going on right now. It really is. And I want to share with the people listening to this, if you are in another part of the country, that can be drastically different.
Right.
And that's just because of some of the things that are going on in our area economically. We're just really lucky, blessed, all of those things to be in probably one of the better growth markets in the country right now. So
yeah, I just can't get it out of my head though. The $25,000 versus $4,800.
Yeah.
I mean, so do you want to pay me? You want to pay now or you want to pay later? Right?
Don't make me show you the math on the amount of interest you pay on the extra 25,000 over the 30 years of the loan.
Right. Because the extra interest, right?
You're at like 60 plus.
Right.
It's significant. It's absolutely material and significant.
So really, just doing the numbers, it just makes sense. Get in now.
So then you think through all the other things. What if I'm wrong, right? What if I move ahead on this house and I'm wrong and the economy just hits the brakes and I can't make my payment on it? Well, fortunately, the conforming loan limit is now in the mid 700s.
Right.
And being in one of the better areas in the country, if you have to get out of that house, if you have to step out of ownership, I can't imagine you're having any trouble getting out of a house. It's not like I'm suggesting people overextend to get in like a dream house that could take a long time to sell because it's unique or just a high price point or something that has a longer time to market. I'm referring to the normal stuff, anything within the conforming loan limits, just normal type of property, single family. You can have a family in there. That's it. So
okay. And I know you said March, right? Is kind of being our magic month, right? And nobody, of course, is holding.
That's the hardest out of all the things we're talking about. Exactly when?
Right.
We'd all own islands.
Right. We don't. Right. I know. I get it.
Exactly.
But is there a reason why the data is suggesting March?
Yeah, for a couple of reasons. The rolling average, the 12-month rolling average of the CPI numbers and inflation numbers, by the time we get to March, we've basically rolled off almost a whole year of 10, 11, 12 type of inflation numbers. And we're going to get to a point where you can't grind the economy to a halt indefinitely without catastrophic harm. Like if you take our GDP and you slow the economy too much, that's a whole nother conversation and also catastrophically bad.
Okay.
So we want to slow it down, but we definitely don't want to stop it for an extended period of time.
Okay. So March would be the first quarter.
March seems to be when you start plugging new numbers into the 12-month rolling average, that we're now at an acceptable inflation number that allows the Fed to at least identify what their plan is going forward, whether they're going to leave them where they're at, continue to do 25 basis points, 50, 75, whatever they plan on doing. We should have line of sight on the other side of the situation at a better level than we did going into it. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense. So what is this then? I mean, then are we saying to sellers, then are we saying to them, then you probably should put your house on the market?
In the Triangle area, it's an excellent market. It just is. So I don't see any reason why. Right now, is in my mind, we're in the middle of January, and the middle of January sounds like it's early in the year. But in the mortgage world, it takes people 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to find a house. It takes you a month to close on the house. The people I'm speaking to today are March. Like we're there already. And everybody that during the holidays took time, they stopped calling the realtors and everything during the holidays and the lenders because they had the family stuff, they taking care of all that, still thinking about it in the background, having great stories about what they're looking to do with their family, showing pictures, looking at houses online. Well, now New Year's over, they're ready to go. And so the phone's ringing. Hey, the amount of people that I've had refreshing their pre-approvals from March of last year, just weren't able to get into a house, and then, just kind of put everything on the back burner through the final quarter of the year. They're all gung-ho ready to go again. And I must say, in our area, the pent-up demand, I see a lot of parallels when we came out of COVID. So March of 20 going into COVID, mortgage interest rates went from 3% to 5.5%, and the entire industry here went dormant for 6 weeks. And then the stimulus rolled out, mortgage interest rates went down back to 3%. And it was one of the best bull runs, economically, going back as far as you can look on any of the charts. So I'm really seeing a lot of, when people were laying around during COVID, looking at houses online, I'm seeing that same thing going on. And now we have a huge amount of pent-up demand, and people have taken the time to go through the numbers and stuff, and they're comfortable at 6 because it's not 7 that we were heading to. And all of those things, they've had time to digest it and are going through the numbers and are thinking about the appreciation and stuff, and are saying, hey, it makes sense to move ahead now as opposed to wait. So
what does like you're talking about taking rates down to 5%. So what does, which is basically a whole point.
Yes, sir.
What does 1 point shift do to the market when we see that happen typically? And because you've been in this industry.
I got to be honest with you. It's the psychology is way more important than the number itself.
Oh, really?
599 is way better than 6%. When you go from 499 to 5 1/8, it is a different mindset. It's just different. We're not talking about an Accord. We're talking about a Lexus. Wait a minute. Everything's different. So I really believe the psychology of hearing 6 as opposed to 5. Well, they say it to me. Well, I can stomach that a lot better. People actually say that. They're like, well, I can deal with that for a while, but God, 7, it's a psychology. The truth is, most of the people we're talking about qualify regardless. So we're not saying that people haven't moved ahead because they can't at the higher interest rate. It's affected affordability. It's affected a lot of those things. I'm not saying that doesn't come into play, but people just don't want to be the person that, hey, did you really buy your house exactly at both the top of the market for prices and rate? People just don't want to do that. And now that they see them retracting, they see it kind of all settling in, people are having comfort with it. They've had time to talk to their family during the holidays. And you know what their family told them? Well, in 78, I paid 17%. 1981, we were at 21. You should be great with that. So, now they've come back, retooled, reinvigorated, and all of that desire, ambition to move ahead is still there.
Right. And now you also said, too, though, that you've already started to see a physical movement.
I've taken more calls in the last weekend since post New Year's. I've probably had more calls and refreshed more pre-approvals in that week than the prior 2.5 months. Easily.
Really?
Easily.
Wow.
Yeah. People are loaded for bear right now. They're ready now. They know it's coming and they're all ready. So I think it's gonna be pretty crazy.
Do you don't think it's going to be though like it was early in 2022? Do you? You don't think it's going to be that crazy? Do you?
I think by June of this year, it's going to be hard to win a house in the Greater Triangle.
Really?
Absolutely.
Really? I mean, you're saying that with confidence.
First-time home buyers talk to me about $1 million homes. That is ludicrous in itself. The things we thought were normal 10 years ago are not anymore. The professional and executive pay in this area, the growth in this area, the bonuses that have been flown in this area, there is money. There's a lot of money moving around out there, and people are not afraid to use it. Yeah, I really do think it's going to be crazy midsummer again.
Really?
Absolutely.
See, I was kind of the opinion that we were going to. I mean, that was going to be certainly better, but I wasn't thinking we were going to go back to.
The thing is, majority of the people that most of the realtors and lenders in this area, I'm on the phone with people all day long. Most of them are not here. They're coming here. And this area is way better than where they're coming from. And the real estate that everybody that lives here thinks is high right now, it's cheap from where they're coming from.
Right.
So it's a deal down here. It's a deal. It's still a deal for them. Northern California, this place is free, literally like free compared
by comparison.
By comparison, 800 square foot, 2.5 million in San Francisco.
Right. Well, we had on the show here Stacy Anfinson, who does the TAR report.
Yeah.
Right. And we have this thing about. I asked him specifically on the show, how many people come in a day? Because we've had these numbers that we've always said, it's 90 or 126 a day. And he said to me very cleverly, he said, I don't know what that exact number is, but here's what I could tell you: more people are coming in than are going out, and it's significant.
Extremely significant. There's been a lot of those numbers. At one point, it was like I was hearing 3,000 plus a week, like 3,500 a week. We're moving to like Triangle,
right,
per week.
Right. It's a bizarre. It was a bizarre number. He just said it was significant.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever that number is, it's still significant. So
it is.
So then sellers need to be preparing.
There's still. What it comes down to is we have a shortage of houses,
right?
And there's all kinds of numbers that are suggesting that it's a significant shortage to houses, both the type of houses that exist and the amount of them. And you factor all these things in, and we end up at the end of the conversation with, well, it's unlikely to see anything getting cheaper or easier in our area is basically what everything comes back to.
You've been great, man. We've done it. We've already done 30 minutes.
There you go.
And we didn't even get to the other topic that we were going to talk about. So I guess we're going to have to bring you back for.
I'm fine to come back.
That show. I guess we're going to have to do that one again because you did all this research. We never got to it. Tell people how to get a hold of you.
I'm Christopher Coy with Townebank. I'm a loan officer over there. You can get me at Christopher.Coy at townbankmortgage.com, where you can call me at 919-306-8895.
And that's Townebank with an E.
Yes.
TOWNE Bank.
That's right.
Mortgage.com. And it is Christopher.Coy, COY. Christopher, you've been great. Thank you again for coming in and doing the show with me. You've been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Hey, folks, that's the show. You know what? I got it. What can I say? You know what? He blew it out of the water. I knew he would, but it always happens here on the show. You know what? Thank you for joining us. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you so much. We appreciate you everywhere watching us, whether live here on a stream or whether you listen to us on a podcast. Tell your friends. Tell everyone that you know that this show has got absolutely valuable information. Can't wait to see you next week. We got another show. It's going to be another great guest. As I say to you all everywhere, all over the world, ciao, everybody.